We're talking Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle on today's show. And speaking of Kittle, ESPN just ranked him as the #1 tight end in the National Football League. If you agree with their rankings and you think Kittle is the best at that position, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Show some love to 85. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr. We start off with Jimmy Garoppolo and how the 49ers have tried to put a Jimmy Garoppolo trade in motion by involving other teams to get in touch with Jimmy Garoppolo's camp and his agent, Don Yee. So this coming from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated. He said the 49ers are actually letting teams talk to Garoppolo and his camp about a contract restructure. So that's the specific element to this conversation. And will Jimmy G be open to bringing that number down if he can go to a team that he desires? Because right now, he's really expensive. And currently, there's only one team in the NFL that can take on his contract with that base salary of $24+ million and that cap hit of nearly $27 million. So if Garoppolo sees the writing on the wall that's been there for a little while, that at some point Trey Lance is going to be the starter, and if that's now and he doesn't want to be a member of the 49ers any longer, is he willing to restructure that deal, bump that financial figure down so that he can get dealt to another team where he either has a chance to be a starter or a backup going into the final year of his deal before he hits potentially the free agent market in 2023. Here's what Breer had to say in that article. What's interesting is, and I think this has gone a little bit underreported, is that the Niners have been 100% willing to let other teams come in and talk to Jimmy's camp about renegotiating that number. Once he's able to throw, is there a team out there that's willing to negotiate his number down? And is Jimmy willing to negotiate that number down as well? Are the Niners willing to take on some of the money to sort of buy back a draft pick? There are a lot of moving pieces with the Jimmy situation as compared to what people realize. I think he's a better player than people realize as well. And a couple of takeaways from what Breer had to say there. I think that Garoppolo wants to go elsewhere, and if he's willing to renegotiate that number, it makes him a more desirable trade candidate, especially for a team that might have some financial problems. And for San Francisco, if they're looking to deal him away to try to get some draft compensation back, allowing other teams to talk to his camp is pretty solid business practice so that they can get this trade in motion and finally move on to the Trey Lance area. So much left to get to on today's show, but first, are your notifications turned on for the 49ers Report? Meaning every time we go live or we push out a video, you get that push noti. Type O for on because you have to be a real one. Type W for whoops, they're not on. Do you know how to turn on your notifications for the 49ers Report so you stay in the know with free daily videos? Here you go right here. You go to the settings app on your phone, you scroll down, you tap YouTube. You just hit that notifications button, turn on allow notifications, and therefore you can be a member of the faithful family of more than 60,000 subscribers. And keep in mind, with training camp coming up in just a couple of weeks this month, we're really going to increase our coverage here on the 49ers Report. As for this Jimmy G potential timeline, a couple of time elements that we're looking at here. The Niners could look to trade Garoppolo now or soon. They could wait until a quarterback injury happens to another team in the NFL. They could also wait for training camp to transpire for a couple of weeks because other teams could then see that they might be unhappy with their current quarterback situations. That allows Garoppolo to get healthy. Then they deal for him. They could also wait until about the middle part of the 2022 season for the NFL trade deadline when other teams maybe panic. They smell the playoffs. They think that team can get to the promised land, and they just need a quarterback to push them over the edge. Here's also another part of this, is that throwing, according to Matt Barrows for Garoppolo, coming off that shoulder surgery, is underway, and he started throwing 2 to 3 weeks ago. We've heard a bunch of reports about him being on schedule in terms of his shoulder surgery recovery. It looks as though he's on schedule, maybe even a little bit of ahead of schedule. This coming from Matt Barrows of The Athletic, as I said. According to a source with knowledge of the situation, Garoppolo resumed throwing 2 to 3 weeks ago. March surgery was performed by the Los Angeles doctor and the surgeon, Dr. Neil El Atrache, who has a strong track record with the 49ers, handled the ACL surgeries for Garoppolo in 2018, Nick Bosa 2020, Solomon Thomas 2020, and each had the best year of their respective careers following that surgery. And for Garoppolo, he's hoping that is going to be the case as well. Of course, different injury with the shoulder as compared to the knee. This is really important for other teams. They've been monitoring Garoppolo's injury status for a little while now, in addition to the financial elements to this trade conversation as well. They want to see if an injury-prone quarterback is in fact healthy and if he's going to be able to throw, because as a quarterback, we know the most important thing for a quarterback to be able to do, they got to be able to throw the football. How would you grade Garoppolo as a player right now? A lot of you love the game Madden, that new release set to come out in a couple of days or weeks, I think. I'm never a huge gamer, but on the Madden scale, how would you rate and grade Garoppolo from 1 to 100? After every one of our live shows on YouTube and Rumble airs on the 49ers Report every single Tuesday, as we go live, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, we then continue to stay live on the Callin app. It's like Twitter Spaces, but even better, an audio social podcasting app where they have really changed the audio experience, and it allows you to actually call into the show. We go live every single week, so make sure you download the app, and you can do so whether you have an iPhone or an Android by going to chatsports.com/49ers Callin. Those download links are also in the comment section and the description of this video. We move ahead on today's show. ESPN ranking George Kittle the number 1 tight end in the National Football League. What ESPN did, put together a list of every single position across the NFL, and they're releasing them out in the days and weeks leading up to training camp. So they put together their tight end rankings after polling 50 execs, coaches, scouts, as well as players, and they all came to an agreement mostly that Kittle is the best tight end in the league. So you look at the top 10 guys, and this is really a stacked position and a position of more importance in a pass-happy NFL, but also from a matchup standpoint, because tight ends going up against smaller DBs, tight ends often win that battle. Going up against linebackers, they're able to beat them with their athleticism. So for Kittle to be atop this class, it's pretty elite territory. George Kittle taking down Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, young emerging tight end with Philadelphia at number 6. The same can be said for TJ Hockenson of the Detroit Lions. Dalton Schultz at number 8, going to get franchise tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. Dawson Knox and Hunter Henry rounding out the top 10. Now, I certainly have some thoughts on Kittle being number 1. Do I agree with it? Do I not? I'll let you know here in just a few moments, but be honest with me. If not Kittle, who is the best tight end in the NFL? Give me a name or maybe even names in the comment section if you think that this list is bogus. As for my take, I think George Kittle is the best all-around tight end in the National Football League, and that's the key element of this conversation, all-around tight end. Without Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle is able to catch the football at an elite level, but he's arguably and probably is, and in my opinion is, the best blocking tight end in the NFL. There are better pass-catching tight ends out there than George Kittle, but when it comes down to blocking as well as pass catching, I think that's why George Kittle was ranked the number 1 tight end in this ESPN poll. As for what an NFC coach had to say about Kittle being atop this list, he's such an explosive player with or without the ball. Run game, run after the catch, that to me is the biggest thing. He's never going to be a great route runner, but he plays with so much physical and physicality through contact, and his savvy, his play speed is so fast that he can overcome all of that. And for Kittle, production has never really been an issue outside of a couple of injury-plagued seasons. And he was able to get that big deal a couple years ago, and he's really added a different element to this Niners offense, and I think he's been worth that contract. Now, when he's off the field, it's certainly frustrating, but you look at his last 4 years, diamond in the rough to a certain degree coming out of Iowa because that program never passes the football. So he's a late-round selection, and in 2018, after a pretty solid rookie year, bursts onto the scene. 88 catches, nearly 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2019, 14 games played after 16 games played the year before, 85 catches, more than 1,000 yards, 5 more touchdowns. Then this is really disappointing in 2020, but the entire 49ers roster was pretty much injured that year. Only played 8 games, but still 48 grabs, and then last year did miss a couple of games, but still went on that torrid pace. at the three-quarter mark of the year and was really good. Now, did not eclipse the 1,000-yard mark, but there's a good point here. George Kittle, as a pass catcher, as a blocker, as a guy who can break tackles and create yards after the catch, is really, really special as a player. And people have taken notice of that across the NFL. And he has such a special blend of all these different skills that makes him a dominant presence at that tight end position. Give me a number right now. Look into your crystal ball. How's Kittle going to perform this year with who we expect to be Trey Lance as a starter? How many receiving yards will Kittle have in 2022? Let me know. Can't wait to see what you all come up with. And as always, thanks for supporting the show.